Hi, Tiffany Roth. Welcome to A.PUTNAM's Women in Golf.
Thank you. I'm so excited. Thanks so much for having me.
Yeah, likewise. We've gotten to chat just a little bit, and so it's always fun to have, 45 minutes to get to know you a little better and really start from the beginning and hear kind of where you've gone with golf and where it is now in your life. And I know you've got a cool story, and especially on how uniquely you're implementing it into your career right now. So, just to do a formal introduction, you are manager over at KPMG, and that's in the internal audit and enterprise risk, let's say, area. I won't go into too much detail because I know it's probably much more complicated than that. And you're also a former golfer at TCU.
Yes, you got it. Exactly.
So we're gonna get started. Figure out how you got to both of those areas in your life. And as always, I would love to just start with how golf came into your life.
Yeah, that's a good and often question. So I always say, and it's kind of the running joke within my family, that my dad was a big golfer and I have a younger sister. And so growing up, my dad wanted to play golf, very involved in golf. And my mom would say, take a kid. So being the oldest and honestly just the most keen to going, I was the one that went with my dad. And we joke now because he kind of got lucky that I stuck with it and then also ended up taking it and competing at a high level. So that has carried us both, honestly, to where we are now. We still go out and play, bring the husbands, the brother-in-laws, getting my sister into it. So lots of fun. We
That's
used
so
to live on
cool.
a golf course, actually,
Hmm.
and one of my, I want to say, greatest memories, and I think honestly what kept me playing for so long is just how much fun my dad made it. And we, after dinner, we lived, I think, on around number 15 and would go play 15, 16, and 17, and then end up back at the front door. So yeah, it's such
That's
a young age.
amazing.
Hmm.
That is so cool. And that's such a good casual way to do it, I think, as a kid as well, where,
Hmm.
it's not a full nine, it's not a full 18, and you're, again, out your doorstep and back. That's so fortunate that you got to do that, especially as a
Yeah.
family. And it
Yeah.
sounds like you still have that relationship with your, parents now. So now, when you, well, where did you grow up, first off?
I grew up in Irving, like Dallas, Fort Worth area. So my
Mm-hmm.
actual, again, very fortunate. I ended up growing up playing at my home course, the TPC Las Colinas,
Mm-hmm.
where the Byron Nelson infamously was held for so many years. So
Cool.
yeah,
That's
grew
very
up in that
cool.
golf school. Actually, just so lucky to be around so many junior golfers. And I know we talked about your sons getting involved now,
Mm-hmm.
but we would play other
Yeah.
clubs around the DFW area. So again,
Yeah.
started so young, but kept it so
Mm-hmm.
much fun and so lighthearted. Honestly, didn't really get
That's
like
neat.
so serious until I was in college. So
I'm sure. I'm sure. And
yeah.
when you were in high school, was golf your sport? Like all along, you were like, golf is my sport. This is what I want to do in college. Or were you playing other sports that, kept you busy outside of golf?
Yeah, honestly, golf, it's so funny. We say what, you caught the bug or something, but it's very
Yeah.
addictive. It's like naturally prone to those type A personalities.
Mm-hmm.
So to answer your question directly, golf was never like the end all be all. I just was the
Mm-hmm.
most consistent with it. I loved it. There
Yeah.
was something about, you could hit nine bad shots and then hit one perfect shot, and that one would carry me over till
Yeah.
tomorrow. But I
Right.
was involved in, all your high school sports, the tracks, the
Mm-hmm.
volleyball, I cheered and, experienced some conflict early just because your college
Yeah.
or high school sports coaches, they want you to, only focus on that sport. But again, kept it very lighthearted and fun and just wanted to keep playing. And when I got to college, it was like, okay, now I'll buckle down and really take this seriously.
That's so neat. So did you, coming, let's say, probably it was junior year of high school, were you narrowing in on
Hmm.
colleges to play golf and or being recruited? What was the process for getting to that point
Yeah,
at
so my
TCU?
dad would definitely, he tried to get me. more seriously down that path. I know with the AJGAs, and at the time it was the TJGT,
Hmm.
were very serious and all of that. I think being young, I didn't realize at the time really how serious those tournaments were in prepping you and laying the groundwork for
Hmm.
the recruiting process and coaches. I look back now and I was like, I think I was a little more naive and kept it very innocent. And again, just going to play. I
Hmm.
mean, I won one TJGT, and like looking back and recalling, I just remember having fun. Like you hear that flow state. It was
Yeah.
very, I just love the game, right? But
Hmm.
then after I was done with the tournament, I was like, I want to go hang out with my friends, or, go play volleyball with my friends. So, but definitely that junior time frame, it got a little bit more serious,
Hmm.
started to get recruited. I think I had mono that summer of my junior year. And
Oh,
so I
geez.
technically, yeah, going back, I sat out. So I had a bit of an unorthodox recruiting process actually.
Hmm.
And then I had an unfortunate event my senior year. We had a friend pass away unexpectedly within our high school. And so that kind of made me take a step back and really reflect on like, what's the purpose of life? What is life? And brought me a
Hmm.
sense of more wisdom now. But at the time, again, took a step back, just reflected, recalibrated, and entered. Actually, I went to TCU out of high school and just was going to play
Hmm.
regular student, or I wasn't going to play, I was just going to go as a regular student.
Totally know what you meant. Yep.
Yeah. And then once I was there, I was like, life's happening again, right? Everybody's moving
Yeah.
forward
Hmm.
and getting on with their life. So I was like, I'm going to play golf. And I remember sitting down with my dad and I was like, I'm going to try to play college golf. And he was like, he kind of laughed. And I was like, why are you laughing? And he's like, I think now he knew how hard that would take or how much work that would take.
Yeah.
And I was like, I'm going to do it. And so at that point, I started reaching out and kind of had to retroactively, get videos together, remind people of
Oh,
my
yeah.
whole golf career, and actually was
Hmm.
really fortunate that the Baylor golf coach responded to one of my emails and he was like, come on down to Baylor. We'd love to have you. And so at that
Mm.
point,
Cool.
jumped on the opportunity, met him that week, and he
Yeah.
was like, you know, at the time, the team's full, but we'd love to take you on as a walk on. So I went down there,
Oh,
loved
geez.
Baylor. Actually, that's where I met my
Hmm.
now husband. So
Oh,
everything
cool.
happens for a reason, but
Hmm.
ended up transferring. Actually, back then, um, honestly, I got a little burned out jumping
Yeah.
from. Um, it's a wild story, Allie.
I love
But
this. These are the best ones, though.
yeah, so I was at Baylor and, focusing, we had lifting and workouts and playing, and then school. And I got a little burned out and decided to take the semester off. And in that journey or semester off, my parents were really supportive of come back home, regroup, reset, but you're still going to have to get back on the road in the path and
Hmm.
graduate. So in that semester, just deciding what I want to do. Do I want to go back to TCU? Do I want to finish at Baylor? And ended up reaching out to the TCU women's golf coach when I made the decision that I'm going to continue my education there. Um,
Hmm.
and then when I met with her, and the biggest thing, what's left the biggest impression on me, is I was coming to her with like a hesitant approach of,
Yeah.
I know the dedication it takes. I know the time you have to put in. I know, you know, your coaching and your teammates and the style and all of that, how it plays a part in it. And the only thing I can remember for that conversation is she mentioned to me, I care more about your well being and how you develop as a person than your golf game. And
That's cool.
eventually, your golf game will follow suit. She's
That's
so big
neat.
into character development. Yeah, more well rounded. And I
Hmm.
was like, the second she said that, I was like, I'll do anything you ask me to. I'll play for you as a coach. And that's the
So
leader
cool.
I wanted to play for.
Yeah.
So very
That's so
long-winded
special.
story, but yeah,
No, it's
so
so neat.
happy where I ended up with TCU. And I actually saw that's where the biggest jump in my game came
Hmm.
from, or that's where I noticed it.
Yeah. And how many years then did you end up playing at TCU?
So I think it was 2.5.
Yeah.
Yeah, with
Very
the
cool.
transfer and everything. Yeah. I
And
played,
so,
yeah, go ahead.
no, no, no. Go ahead. You played what?
Oh, I remember my senior year, and that's really when I got the opportunity to step up and start helping and contributing as a team. And I've watched a few of these women in golf series, but I know
Mm-hmm.
how everyone attests to just the strange dynamics with golf, right? It's such an
Yeah.
individual sport, but yet we're in a team
Right.
setting. You're competing week to week against each other, but then yet,
Mm-hmm.
the week you get selected for the tournament, now you all have to come together and work as a team. So that's
Yeah.
some of the
Like,
most pivotal lessons or the lessons I've taken.
oh, I don't doubt. And I am sure that's a part of your character, and especially
Hmm.
as your professional career has developed, I think everybody will say, especially if they've been an athlete, that there's so much that you um, learn and take with you from sport to a career. So I'm sure it's benefiting you in so many ways. Not to mention, you can go on a KPMG golf outing and probably show some people up.
It's so funny, Ali. I always tell people, I'm like, if you spent the amount of time that I spent hitting a golf ball, I'm pretty sure the playing field would be even.
Yeah. Oh, that's cute.
Yeah.
So at TCU, were you a
Mhm.
business major? What were you studying?
Yeah, I actually was. I came out of a business school and majored in entrepreneurial management.
Mm-hmm.
So, with all of this golf and basically the intricate story I just mentioned to you, I've always had a bit of strategy in my mind in the sense of when people were saying to declare a major, I was like, well, how do I know what I'm going to want to do in 4 to 5
Mm-hmm.
years? I'm still figuring it out. Right now, I'm just trying to get to practice in 3 hours. So I didn't want to declare a major that would basically leave something off the table or pigeonhole
Yeah.
me, in a few years. So
Mm-hmm.
after talking with some people and some mentors, I just basically wanted to walk into any room and be able to have a conversation at the end of my
Mm-hmm.
college career when I graduated. And the
Yeah.
entrepreneurial management program at TCU really let me have a lens, or it was really a door into marketing, finance,
Yeah.
accounting, just running a business as a whole. So
Yeah.
that's that's what I ended up with, but ended
That's
up in the
that's so
finance and
cool.
accounting sector after all. Yeah.
So you didn't, I'm sure in some of your foundation classes of finance and accounting, that wasn't too painful for you. I was
No,
also an
well, yeah.
entrepreneurship major. I had a dual major in entrepreneurship and supply chain, but I
Hmm.
loved all my entrepreneurship classes. I think for that reason, because you touched on just about every operation and channel within a
Hmm.
business. So I can relate to that being
Yeah.
a good choice or a fun one at least. So I mean, kind of that senior year when you were wrapping up school, maybe not golf. I mean, where was golf going for you? Did you have in your head that once you were headed into graduation that you would stop playing golf, or was there any part of you that wanted to continue playing?
So I think 95% of me wanted to continue playing, and that's the
Mm-hmm.
direction and kind of the mindset I was going. That 5% really came from everyone asking me, so what are you going to do after college? Do you have a job lined
Yeah.
up? Seeing all of my peers that had internships and taken their
Mm-hmm.
studies, I don't want to say more seriously because it was a bit different being in and out of class, traveling and playing golf, but I saw their 4 year basically investment into their
Mm-hmm.
career pay off because they all had a job set up after college. So
Yeah.
that
Yeah.
5% really, it started, putting a lot of doubt in my mind, shifting well, at that time I was 22, 23, and I was like, I'm already kind of old in the sense of most people graduate college at 21,
Sure, I
right?
know what
And
you
then
mean.
I'm like,
Yeah.
okay, it's hard to get a job right now, but that 95% of me really wanted to play. I know my swing
Yeah.
speed, my numbers, my distance, like I felt like my game was ready to bring to the tour level and start, competing with my
Mm-hmm.
colleagues or my teammates on the golf course. But it was a big shift and a lot of mental development and
For
character
sure.
built. Because I go play too with some of the members out at the courses we would play, and
Hmm.
they'd always sprinkle in, have you thought about, going into the workforce? Or they'd sprinkle in some comments that would be, are you thinking more long term? And so that
Yeah.
really would echo in the back of my mind, for a good reason. But when you're young and graduated college and just come off golf, I was like, my dreams are as big as the world.
Yeah. Oh,
Yeah.
I get that. Especially at that age too. It's a tough
Hmm.
thing to navigate for sure.
Hmm.
Now, so what was kind of next after graduating at TCU? What did you get into?
So I came back home, moved in with my parents just to try to figure it out. It was a bit of a whirlwind, so I just needed, the
Hmm.
dust to settle. I needed to basically make a plan if I'm going to play or if I'm going to get a job, and I kind of did both in tandem. So I would, start sending out resumes and building out my professional career, or try to get in professionally. At the same time,
Hmm.
I was still playing, I was still meeting with my swing coach, just kind of basically laying the land of what that would look like. And at the
Hmm.
same time, reaching out to teammates that either graduated before me or were also trying to play on tour, taking their feedback and helping that as an input to my decisions. Um, and this is where it kind of got really like pro con list, right? So
Hmm.
at the same time, a lot of my teammates would be like, we're on tour, or not on tour, but on the mini leagues or trying to get on tour, and all the investments they made. And if they made a cut, at the time, the check or the monetary value would only cover their expenses they just spent playing.
Yeah.
And most of their money would
Hmm.
come from either sponsorships or endorsements, or all of these things. So with that, and then also starting to get not a lot of traction in submitting my resumes, I was just at a really tough spot in, what do I want to do with my life? And I was like, where do
Right.
I want to be, at my late 20s, basically,
Yeah.
if it's this hard trying to get a job at the moment. And then also knowing I have mentors like my father just saying, you can always play golf. It's never going to go away, right? It
Yeah.
follows you. And then also some business mentors that just helped me, get into the professional world and start seeing golf as more of a tool than at the
Hmm.
time what felt like my entire life.
Yeah. So what year was that, did you say? It was like
Yeah, 2017,
post?
2018. It was definitely
Okay, okay.
pre-COVID. Yeah. 20,
Pre-COVID, that's what
yeah,
I thought.
2019. Hmm.
Amazing. So first job was where then?
So, yeah, I got hired at a company called Protiviti, which, just what I was
Okay.
saying, is when it was really hard getting traction on any of my resumes or submitting it,
Yeah.
um, I had a business mentor at TCU, and she really helped guide me and said, you know, you may be a good fit for consulting. And at the time, I was like, I'm focused on golf. I'll think about that later. And then after college, I was like, okay, let's look into this consulting thing.
Hmm.
And again, had another mentor that mentioned, when it's this difficult, or I didn't have necessarily the resume experience, let's say as my peer entering the workforce, um, I ended up networking, or using networking to reach out to people. And what I did is I found professionals that was in a position I more than likely wanted to be in, whether that was a different
Hmm.
stage or years down the line. And then I would reach out to them, more particularly alumni for TCU, anyone I could really start a connection with, and just simply ask them, you know, do you have time for a phone call, a cup of coffee? Can I share my experiences, learn from your experiences? And I started doing that and learned from a lot of professionals, just great stories, and realized everyone has a winding road to get to where they are.
Yep.
But was fortunate to meet with a TCU alumni that worked for Protiviti, and saw a little light in me, and said
Hmm.
he thought I'd be great. And some of my skill sets that I were explaining, I learned from golf, and I knew how to articulate those at the time skills, either in the weight room, the perseverance, the
Hmm.
dedication, and kind of learn to linguistically translate that into business
Yeah.
terminology. And that's how
Hmm.
I got my first job at Protivity.
That's amazing. And
Yeah.
um that aspect of networking is not an easy thing. And I,
Hmm.
especially as a young adult, I think having not participated actively yet in the workforce to one, understand that, and two, have the courage to do the reach out, spending the time having those conversations, because it is daunting and it's such a good story because I think it's a lot of people, whether they're young adults or not, I think really understanding that and the value in those conversations and hearing those stories. And those are connections you'll have forever, whether something came of them now, like that's one more connection you have to pick up the phone or reach out to. And it's cool that that's exactly how you went about, finding your first job. And I think a
Hmm.
lot of people now are leaning on LinkedIn to do that, but there's something there's like one step further with all of that. And I think it's just that of asking for the time and then of course getting into those conversations and knowing
Hmm.
it's not even what to ask. I think it's just listening and learning.
Hmm.
So
Hmm.
it's really cool. I admire that that's how you came about after sending resumes was getting you only so far.
Yeah,
Very cool.
no, very, very much so. And that's the thing, Ali, I will say it's not right. I can say this now, very much hindsight's 2020. At the
Yeah.
time, it just felt like I was like, anyone, will you talk to me? But it was very
Mm-hmm.
organic. It wasn't like an exchange of I want something for you or I'm trying to get a
Yeah.
job from you.
Yeah.
But at that time, it was like, I'm really trying to learn, how this works
Yeah.
and basically
Mm-hmm.
learn from people that have done it before in the sense of I'm still trying to figure it out, but I know I have a lot to give or a lot to offer. And then was just fortunate that others could see it as I was trying to articulate it.
Absolutely. And I think there's professionals too that have been, just remember being in your shoes. And I think
Hmm.
some that are very attracted to that mentorship type of opportunity too. So I mean, and that's not everybody, obviously, but it's great that you found
Hmm.
people that related to you on the TCU level from a graduate there. So, Protivia, when you were there, were you immediately into like financial consulting or what were you doing?
Yeah, exactly that, and exactly what I'm doing now,
Mm-hmm.
which was
Okay.
internal audit, and enterprise risk, and financial services. And that's what the big four is, the big four, and that
Yeah.
and that comes with it. But when I first got my foot in the door, Protivity was great. Met lots of people, learned a lot, but it was still I wanted the big four experience.
Mm-hmm.
And then also in college, when I touched on it, how hard it was to just get a job. A lot of these large
Mm-hmm.
companies, I did not have the resume experience next to my peers.
Yeah.
So when I reached out to KPMG or applied and, got their attention, it was really just a check or like a dream of mine just to be able to be
Yeah.
considered. So very fortunate there. But one reason too why KPMG really caught my attention and why I'm, so excited about it is just what they do for women's golf. And this
Mm-hmm.
is not like a plug or a plant. This is just very genuine because
No,
this
this is
this is
good.
it's deep
I also
rooted.
don't think
When I was trying,
I was gonna say I don't know that a lot of people understand to the depth of it. I think they think about the
hmm.
KPMG tournament, things like that. So no, I think it's very cool. I want to
Yeah.
hear the details of it. I'm curious.
Yeah. Well, and that's what there's a bit of an emotional side or component to it because when I graduated
Mm-hmm.
college, in that strategic vision of where do I want to be when I'm 30 and, inquiring with my friends about what they're doing and how they were trying to play, realized how hard it was in the path of a woman versus, let's say, a guy or a man. And definitely think like the men on tour deserve the purses they receive because it is, a
Mm-hmm.
much more competitive and there's a lot more volume there. But from
Mm-hmm.
when I was being very self-focused and like, how am I going to make a paycheck work, right? And again, at 23, a lot of that struggle KPMG now has noticed as well and has put in not process, this is where my internal audit is going to come out, not for process or procedures, but basically a plan to help shed light
Hmm.
on women and in women in leadership as well.
Yeah.
And I think they set
Hmm.
the standard and matched the KPMG PGA championship or the
Yeah.
LPGA championship. And having one of the biggest purses out on the LPGA tour, sets the standard,
Hmm.
and they're pioneering for women, and just all that they're doing, that it makes women be able to go out and be able to play and make a life of it and have a before and an after. And I know we've talked about before just having kids in the middle of it all, right? And being able to make a career out
Yeah.
of it and not just have like a couple years stint on tour, but really making careers and building a life from it.
It's so neat. And
So
it
that,
is.
yeah,
It's
that
cool
got
with
me into KP. I was like all about KPMG.
it was on the top of your list.
Yes, yes, yes. Very excited.
Oh, it's so neat. And so how long have you been there?
So I'm coming up on 2 years this August. And
Congrats.
it honestly flies by. Yeah, thank you so much.
So, Tiffany, can you tell us just about your career so far at KPMG? Um, is golf a big part of the culture, or is it like have you established friends within KPMG that you golf with, or is there any like KPMG, just local golf league that you guys play together, girls
Mhm.
play together, like, or I mean, maybe co-ed, I don't know.
Yeah, no, no. There's actually, so our Dallas office is a part of the corporate challenge. So what that is we enter in it. It's an Olympic style, it's not even a tournament, it's Olympic style event, but there's lots of events. There's like frisbee and soccer and kickball and golf and mini golf and all these things. But I got to be on the golf team. And so KPMG, there were four of us that played against other companies in the Metroplex.
Oh,
So that was
cool.
really fun and like a networking opportunity. But from a more individual standpoint, it's, yes, like you mentioned, there's people or women at KPMG that play golf, and have kind of used that. So a lot of women, sometimes you'll see them a bit timid to get into it just because it
Hmm.
wasn't as natural, or just what I'm searching for a word, but it's like routine, right? As you would think
Yeah,
something else
yeah.
is. And a lot of them, some of them are turned off like that's a man's only sport kind of thing. So I've tried to come into just any professional environment and kind of spin it of, why don't you come with? Why don't you learn? And I think right
Hmm.
now golf is so popular with like branding or marketing, or you see a lot more brands
Hmm.
that give us the opportunity to make it more fun. I think we've talked about before, and why I love A.PUTNAM so much is it's what my younger self, dreamed about or would want. I think I shared when I was
Hmm.
younger, there was, my dad, it was like really windy and rainy, and my dad's like, here's a pair of wind pants. And I was crying before practice because I was like, I am not putting those on.
Yeah,
So there's
yeah,
just so much more out there right now that can make it fun and make everyone involved, at any age. It's kind of exciting, and a little part of me wishes that I was in college or in that 20-year-old space right now when golf is blowing up, because there's a lot of
yeah,
opportunity out there for sure.
yeah. It's so different, and I mean, I'll even social media and everything's come so far, even in the
Yeah.
last 5 years. So it is
Hmm.
kind of crazy. Obviously, COVID helped with the boom of, golf and the interest in new people entering the sport and all of that. But I know I mean, and you're seeing it probably in a different light too, as now a bit like a young professional and
Hmm.
getting to see maybe a little older generation pick up the sport or be more comfortable, I think, going to play, even if it's a company outing and they haven't played before. I mean, those things have always been, I think, very daunting for women, but
Hmm.
maybe the bar is a little bit lower from an entry standpoint where more women are doing it. So
Hmm.
it's really, really cool. Now, I know just looking kind of forward and what you're up to at KPMG and anything as it pertains to golf, what's next for you? Like, what do you envision 2024 looking like for you?
Yeah, so definitely, and fingers crossed, playing as much golf as I can.
Mm-hmm.
But eventually, I would really like to start getting, and I say this women, and not the sense of it's women only, but as much as kind of bridging the gap in between that timidness that was I mentioned a bit
Mm-hmm.
earlier, and having women, you know, get more excited about it, in the sense of making it more natural for women to go out and play. And it's not even
Mm-hmm.
at an elite level, right? It's just the camaraderie and being outside. And I think you can read, not read people, but you can understand a lot when you go play with somebody, right? It's very like scripted with integrity and honesty and a lot more core
Mm-hmm.
values that you can recognize in
Yeah.
someone. And that's really
Mm-hmm.
why I think I've loved it, is just the respect that not only you show like the game or the golf course, but the people you play with and some of the history
Mm-hmm.
that comes along with that. Um,
Yeah.
and then just getting anyone out there, it's not so scary as people might seem. I always say, though, people that are more older that get into it, I give them so
Yeah.
much credit because like I've been playing since I've had consciousness almost, but it feels like riding a bike. Whereas someone
Yeah.
that just picks it up brand new, I'm again that courage you were talking about.
Yeah,
So,
absolutely. And that's so good. I think it takes women like you to um, share that. And I think more and more women are, I think, searching for that, even as it pertains to connections, whether it's on LinkedIn or it's social media, following people that might be providing either tips, like, you know, just almost that
hmm
entry, some of it being entry level to the sport. And it's just a new conduit, I think, for women to educate themselves and be a little bit more exposed than they ever have. So it
hmm
sounds like you're dabbling in some of that as well.
Yeah, and very much so. I've talked about on LinkedIn too, is just doing a where are they now, essentially, of like old college teammates that are now also in the workforce, or just reaching out to and just going and playing around and seeing where that goes as well. Because at the end of the day, it very much is a networking opportunity, and there's
Hmm.
lots of good times to be had.
Absolutely. And I always think I know my dad will have, and I think so many people say this, but I remember my dad
Mm-hmm.
saying like a lot of business is done out on the course, and you touched on
Mm-hmm.
some of the reasons why. And I think you really have this unique amount of time with somebody on a course that's a little less distracted in terms of
Mm-hmm.
you're away from your phone to some degree. I think that's even changed a little bit. I think I was just looking at our
Mm-hmm.
new course rules, and we're now allowed to text on the course. So kind of funny that it's evolving. But anyways, you
Mm-hmm.
do like you said, kind of the tradition of golf is about integrity um and networking and building all those relationships on the course. So it's a good place to do that. And from your standpoint, especially career wise and networking, which is really what sounds like got you to where you were to some degree, and will
Mm-hmm.
continue to expose you to new people and opportunities and things like that. So it's really cool that you're utilizing that and LinkedIn to, you know, meet with like people, or whether or not you're at the same level from a likeness of golf, talent level. At least that's something that I think as many golfers will say that it doesn't really matter, what level you're at from a play standpoint. It's really about the that time and connection on the course, which is really cool.
Yeah, exactly. And A.PUTNAM makes it that much easier. I'll say that as well with
You're
no
so
plug.
sweet. You're
It's
so cute.
true. It's
Oh
like
my gosh. I
I've
know
been
you look
searching
great
for
in
a
your little
long
button up.
time.
No, but
Thank
it's
you.
kind of funny because you're absolutely um kind of my target consumer. Like
hmm
but I was always in your shoes too, and that was just as a business professional, um, navigating, golf and how it played a part in my career, and so it's feeling confident. I mean, it's obviously everybody will say, especially in your position at top four firm like KPMG, like how you dress is important. And I always thought like you dress for the job you want. And so I do think
Mhm.
the golf course, well, it's not like every minute of your day is spent doing business on the course, but when you get to those opportunities, I always just felt like I was never dressed in a way that made me feel confident,
Mhm.
especially in a business, what is still a business setting. Always felt like I was in some uniform when the guys really didn't have to be. So
Mhm.
it's like finding that balance where you still feel professional and sophisticated and put together. So it's really fun to support
Yeah.
you and all that you're doing.
Well, thank you so
It's
much. And
really
also
cool.
it's like building that elegance or that classic style, but also with
Yeah.
utility. I think a lot of times
Hmm.
before you'd have to compromise, right? If you were in the
Yeah,
uniform
somewhere.
and you looked the part, maybe it wouldn't allow you to swing or get a full rotation. So
Yeah.
there was always some
Yeah.
sacrifice, but
There's a
that's where it's
balance. I
just
should
so
keep sending
easy.
you some
Yeah.
samples to see how how they feel with a good swing.
Yeah, I'll give you some player feedback. But no, everything is,
That's
I mean,
good.
it's
I
so
love that.
phenomenal, Allie.
It's so fun. It's so
Yeah.
thanks. Well, we appreciate your support and wearing it so proudly and nicely. So it's really cool. We're excited to see where you go and just again support you too and just your career path at KPMG. And it's such a great place to be, and you'll find a lot of opportunity there, I'm sure.
Oh yeah, absolutely. And making it that much more
Amazing.
convenient.
Yeah, absolutely.
The
I
whole,
know.
yeah, the professional setting. I know we talked about just the mom life on the go, but just transitioning
Yeah.
and making it more efficient, right? We don't have to bring bags and
Yeah.
bags going from event to event to event. It's like
I
maybe
know.
a piece or two.
Right.
Yeah.
I mean, my husband will give me a hard time because how much I like to shop and I don't mind an outfit change, but sometimes
Hmm.
you're just like, I physically just don't have time. And I told you I got to play 9 holes today. I got to, you know, get back to work and now I've got to run off to kids and I haven't had to change yet. So, there are some days where it's just like you don't have time to even think about it.
Yeah.
So
I mean, that's the goal.
it is. And you'll be, oh my gosh, you'll be in that stage of your life with kids and things like that. I mean, you're recently married, right? When did you get married?
Yes, yes, November. So I think just
Yeah,
at
you're
6 or 7
total
months.
newlywed.
Yeah.
Yeah. It's
Yeah.
amazing. You're still a young little thing, so you've got lots of more fun phases ahead of you. But we're so thrilled to have you a part of Women in Golf, and it's kind of a nice way to stay connected with women. And really, I know our relationship will flourish beyond this. So, all right, Tiffany, thanks again. And we, again, can't wait to follow you along and support you with everywhere you go.
Such a pleasure, Ali. Thank you so much.
Thanks. Bye.